Music and Monsters.
You are watching Music and Monsters.
Music and Monsters, the art of Jace Whitman. Please visit www.musicandmonsters.com.
Young writers that all they want to do is write, what should they do to publish? Like they don't care about fame, they just love reading and writing.
Well, I want to say that that's awesome. There's lots of people out there, Jace, that have books, dozens of books that they'll never let out into the world for whatever reason.
Correct.
Either their ego is fragile or they can't take what is oftentimes harsh criticism.
Yep.
So I think there's the drive to write, but then there's also a part of that little beast you keep in the corner that's your ego, right? Where you have to have enough ego to want to get up on the stage, but you can't have so much ego that it blinds you to all the other stuff, right?
Exactly. I'm a walking example of that. Like, before my stroke, my ego prevented me from releasing anything. I was terrified of success and terrified of failure. I was terrified of criticism.
Yeah.
And so, facing death, it's like, and the reality that everything I'd done could be gone and no one would ever see it. It's like, okay, let's change everything.
It reminds me of a quote that says, when a man knows he's to be hung in a fortnight, it concentrates his mind greatly. Right? So
yes.
Knowing that, now I'm turning 60 in a couple of months, and now I hear the clock louder than I ever have, right? Every minute of the day, it bangs with such a finality that I'm driven now to push my stuff out as much as possible. Just get it before as many eyes as possible, so that even if it's a dim echo, my existence has an echo. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. It's like I don't want to say coaching, but I'm mentoring some friends of mine that are good friends, and we're all about the same age, like 50 or about to turn 50. I'm about to turn 50. And so, going the whole life, and my friends doing kind of the same of, that we know what we're supposed to do. And part of that thing of knowing is a curse too, which you understand. It's like, I have lots of friends going like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. It's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's like, yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look what they say. Look at the place that you fear the most, and behind that is your destiny.
Yes. Yes.
Because it is a fear of success, right?
Yes.
As much as failure.
Fear of success, fear of failure. Because on my low level, like really low level, like nothing level, I experienced resistance, haters, if you want to call it that. On just, because I do lots of different things, and like on all of those levels, there's a double-edged sword, because I'm creative in a lot of ways, and so I get lots of people that want to be creative, that put their hooks into me, or try to, or they used to, and they like, come be part of my thing. It's like, no, or well, it used to be, yes, I will, because it's like, okay, that distracts me from what I should be doing. Yes, I'll help you.
Right.
And now the funny thing is, it's like, yes, I'll help you find your path, and good luck. Like, I'm not putting my time into your project. Unless there's compensation, it's like, I have some friends where they're like, I want to kick you some dollars. It's like, yeah, we can talk.
Well, compensation is a funny thing. Compensation can come in a lot of different ways, right? It could cross my palm with silver. It could be expose me to your audience, because that's worthwhile in this day and age, right? Something that you're doing now, and I'm deeply appreciative of. The idea that so a friend of mine, Brian Ellison, said once that, like, what are you looking for when you come and ask me for advice or whatever? Are you looking for my advice, or are you looking for my sympathy? If you want my sympathy, it sucks. Life sucks, market sucks, writing sucks, painting sucks. If you want my advice, I'll give you my advice. I'm only going to give it to you once, because if I have to give it to you again, either you didn't apply it or you weren't listening. And so that gets a little harsh sometimes, but it's like, I want to help you, but I've got a book staring me in the face, and I only have half the ideas for them. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it. I want to commiserate around a coffee table too, and sip lattes and talk about how shitty the artist's life is. But on the other hand, that's not getting any further other than patting that little creature in the corner again, right? Patting your ego and commiserating to go, yeah, it really sucks, doesn't it? So I'm not so bad. It's like, no, go do your work.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Right.
Like, I ran into a guy, I mean, this is going back. It's funny, like, your words just triggered a memory for me. This goes back maybe 20 years, and my friends and I would go out to coffee, and my friends introduced me to this guy. I can't even remember his name, but he was aspiring screenwriter, aspiring filmmaker. And I was like, oh, cool. And we liked a lot of the same 70s movies. And he was, one of those guys that's like super opinionated and jaded. It's like, how can you be jaded? You haven't even tried. And I remember we got in an argument because he says, I'm going to write a book called Hollywood Sucks. And I was like, Hollywood doesn't suck. You suck.
Yeah. Well, I think when people come to me and say, I'm going to write a book about that, I go, you know what? That's awesome. When you're done, bring it to me, and I'm happy to read it. I'm happy to enjoy it like the rest of the world. But don't tie me into this conversation where you're going to detail the plot or what you want to do. The world is full of people that are full of what they want to do, but,
I had an acquaintance that, to show you examples of people trying to put their claws into me, I had an acquaintance that was like, we were driving around, and he said, I've got this idea that I want you to adapt. It's like, an idea you want me to adapt. What is it? He's like, well, it's a science fiction miniseries. It's like, have you written any of it down? He's like, no, it's a TV show. It's like, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. It's like, it's a TV show that exists. I want you to adapt it, make a movie out of it. It's like, no, you don't understand how it works. It's like, that's someone else's intellectual rights. It's like, if you have your own idea, I'll give you resources on how to write it.
Well, that could be chalked up to naivete, right? Like someone who, like how many people, like art is a funny thing. It's like, I never would look at a guy building a building and do that.
I always equate it to illusions. I like magic, and I'm shitty at magic. I also know why I'm shitty. I don't practice. I'm enamored with what it is, and I know I just am not willing to put in the thousands of hours to get the dexterity down. And so writing, acting, drawing, screenwriting, directing, you name it. It's all of that. And an example is like people see Prince playing guitar. They're like, man, it just comes so easy. It's like, no, it doesn't. It's like, first of all, born a genius. Second of all he does is play guitar.
Yeah. What's the thing about, like, you have your question and I answer it, and I want money for that, let's say, or consideration for that. And you're not paying for the minute or the second it took me to answer the question. You're paying for the 10,000 hours that says Malcolm Gladwell, what it turned to get me there. So, and people get that all twisted too. That brings in the whole, exposure and art for free thing. It's like, well, no, you don't get it. Think of it this way: art being a gigantic machine, and people at one end of the machine, or a person at one end of the machine, does a lot of activity. He's supposedly gathering his ingredients, and he's doing this and he's doing that. And that's the role that you see a lot of people in. They're in that mode of, I'm constantly creating, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But really, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what comes out at the other end of the machine, the finished product that hits the table and goes, here's the book I was telling you about. I had that crazy sci-fi idea. Well, here it is. That's the way doors get. And you don't even have to knock on those doors. You know what I mean?
The machine is terrifying to me because I've seen the machine get artists I admire and spit them out.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I don't know how familiar you are with the recording industry, but it's brutal. It's sort of like publishing. I don't know if they do this in publishing, but the recording industry will actually...
Less sex in publishing.
Yeah, definitely. Less drugs, less sex. So probably some drugs, but probably less drugs. But
they're more like antidepressants.
Right. The recording industry will actually sign an artist and shelve them and just let them sit for years. So they're just non-competing. And
they do the same thing with screenplays.
Yeah.
This is too similar to Volcano, and we're going to buy it and we're going to set it aside. And technically, the artist got paid, supposedly, right?
That reminds me of George Romero. How he made more money making screenplays that were never produced.
Sure.
Than he ever did in his career.
Sure.
And the thing that sucks with that, which, I know you know George, or knew George. I'll just say him in the present tense. I listened to an interview with him while he was still alive, and it still kind of breaks my heart. He wanted to do a Tarzan movie. That was his dream.
Yeah.
God damn it.
He always talked about wanting to do something other than horror, and then later on it was just like, I guess I'm doing horror.
Well, it's the thing that would get greenlit. And then the thing that sucks is he still had to struggle to get those things greenlit. It's like George Romero doing a zombie movie. It's like, where's the money? He had to go to foreign investors a lot of times. And
that's a gimme, right? Especially at the time that he was still alive. That's like Romero doing a zombie movie is a gimme.
Like
I'm not going to go see that.
Yeah. And it's just funny because, just all of the, him having to bow down to a major studio to get financing for Land of the Dead just because zombies were hot again. It's like, this guy made that. He actually created that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and what's awesome about George is he freely admits his influence. He's like, I ripped it off from Matheson. It's like, yes. Just like King says, I ripped off Salem's Lot from Matheson. It's like, yes. It's like, know your inspirations and acknowledge them. That's why I keep giving praise to George. I mean, George is one of my heroes. And, luckily enough, I got to meet him, and he was more awesome than I could have ever imagined. I mean, you know, just a sweetheart of a guy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And he surrounded himself with great people. So, I mean, Savini, Amplis.
Yes. And it was
Amplis is such a sweetheart that, how do you not love John Amplis? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I do. I've never met him, but I still do. And I think he's awesome.
He's a brilliant guy.
And George, there were 2 times I met him. One was like an actual, like a meet and greet kind of situation, and one was just in the lobby at Monsterpalooza. And the second time, I'll just say the first time when I walked away from that, I was like, I understand why his crews are so loyal to him now. It's like, it all makes sense. I would lie down in front of a car. Just tell me to.
But we were protective of George, right? He was one of us,
It's not just that. It's his personality and his warmness and his sense of humor. A giant.
I saw George get pissed once, and it was pretty awesome.
I can only imagine. If he got pissed, he's going to be super pissed.
You're reminded, like, wow, you're a big guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say about it is about not getting enough respect, but that genre is known for that. I mean, look at the way Fulci was handled and how, like, his last few films, how he passed. I interviewed Tom Renoni once, and Tom did a lot of visual effects on, like, Lord of Illusions. He was the BB and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Big effects guy. Oh, he tells the story of a winter's night, Fulci appearing at a Fango Con, and it was snowing and all this other stuff, and Fulci had forgotten his insulin medication and his hypodermics, and Renoni carried him through the snow to CVS's around New York, trying to get just ampules and whatever, syringes and needles and that kind of thing, just so that he could do his insulin. But it was just one of those things where it was in the midst of all of that the Black Mask was happening, and the Argento and that rivalry weirdness was happening, and it was just sad. It's like, this guy is responsible for the word gore,
Yeah.
It's fine. And here he is getting schlepped in the snow on a fan's back.
Yep.
But the genre has always been that way, I was going to say, now there's this safety net, right, for a lot of those actors and a lot of those and that safety net is conventions, right? I mean, someone who is in,
all
whatever.
the handlers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they can go there now and they can still make a living, and while I don't think that's a terrific idea, at least that's the silver lining in that. So
I do like the fact that there's some genre actors that are making more money doing the circuit now than they ever made movies. I think that's pretty awesome.
The problem in that is that the way conventions work are that promoters have seed money, either they have it on themselves or they get it, and to secure certain things, the venues, and there's guarantees and deposits all the way around, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So they get there on the backs of small artists or people selling tchotchkes or horror-related this, horror-related that. So the average dealer in that town is buying space in the hopes that they're going to sell stuff, So we kind of get to the convention on those, right? They put up the money for their booths, and they've now gotten, they have their booths, and the promoter has his money that he can secure the venue and blah, 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 blah. But when you, the fan, gets there and with your $300 that you've saved and you're ready to buy some shit, now what do you buy? Do you buy the tchotchkes? Do you buy the horror-related art and this, that, and the other thing? Or do you buy your picture with Thor? I do too. Or do you buy your picture, if you're your average fan, do you buy your picture with Thor? Well, with Thor, that's my $300 in one whack, which is, don't even get me started on that. But around the water cooler, what's going to make everyone be impressed over my weekend? A picture of me with Thor, not a eyeball earring. So those very same people that get you there get totally fucked because the money just never seems to get there. You hear about artists at an artist alley just barely scrimping by and making their table, and they're legends. They're legends, and it's like, wow, man, I don't know if I'm okay with this. It's good for the filmmaker / actor / stunt guy, but it's not so good for the person over here that's, making art. So
the exact example of that is Bernie Wrightson. So I saw Bernie Wrightson I was talking with Jomo about it in a previous episode. Bernie Wrightson is, one of my illustration deities, or maybe the illustration deity. And I was so starstruck when I saw him at a booth at Monsterpalooza. Or was it Fangoria? It was one of those. I couldn't go over and talk to him. And it's just like, and I'm kicking myself. It's like, God damn it. It's like I could have gone and talked to him. And I had no idea. You never know. That's why, to anyone listening, if there's someone you idolize and they're not charging you $300, go over to their table and just tell them you appreciate them. Just shake their hand. Just do that. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe had mentioned, which I'm sure you saw, the splash page, 2-page illustration from Bernie's Frankenstein that went for $1 million.
Oh, it's called "I Will Be With You on Your Wedding Night." Yeah, I have it on my wall.
And it's just, he was talking about it, and it's true. It's like Bernie was struggling with medical bills while he was here.
Yeah.
And Joe had said that Frank Darabont had stepped in and helped him financially. It's like, which is awesome. That's what I want to hear. But it's like the thing that Joe pointed out, like, why did it have to take for that great artist to die for his work to be valued in that way?
Right.
Now that kind of goes back through our whole history. Artists die and then suddenly everything is valuable. it's like, I don't know how we fix that. I don't know if that's possible to fix.
Well, I mean, there's the argument that, you know, he did sell the piece. So
Right.
you know, it's like once it's out of your control and you sell the
That's true.
piece.
That's true.
So that's something. It's on one hand. On the other hand, it's like that's my shit, man. That's my blood in every single one of them lines, right?
Right.
So I'm of two minds. I think, God damn, Bernie was good.
He was great.
Bernie was good across the board.
Yeah, like his monster stuff was the best monsters. Like his zombies were the best zombies. I found him through old school Swamp Things when I was a little kid, and
Sure.
just his line work.
Have you ever seen The Studio?
No.
There's a book out called The Studio. It was for a year. Jeff Jones, Michael Kaluta, Wrightson, and somebody else had a studio together for a year, and the book documents everything that they did within that year.
Oh, I need that.
Oh my god, Jay, I can't even tell you, man. It's every page is just, it's amazing. Yeah.
Let's switch it up and talk about music for a bit.
Okay.
What's your favorite concert experience? Like, just pick something that jumps out to you.
First thing that comes to my mind, Kabuki Theater. It was like 1983. The Residents.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. A background on that, I started working in record stores in 79. And then I worked at the Warehouse, Record Factory, the Warehouse. I worked for Tower about 6 years. I was a Jazz New Age soundtrack buyer for Tower.
Oh, that's cool.
Music for me is different than it is for other people in that I don't revisit things. I don't go and say, oh, I like just now. I was like, yeah, I want to hear some Wayne Shorter. And so I go to my thing. I'm looking around for Wayne Shorter, and I go, man, I've heard all this. I'm always going to pick the record I haven't heard because for me, it was always about, see, at Tower, everyone got a turn on the turntable. So for an 8-hour shift, you'd get this myriad of music styles, jazz to country to classical to pop to this, that. And so it just makes you hungry for more. You know what I mean? So my relationship with music is very weird given that, and given that as a child I had hearing issues that got fixed. So, which I promptly blew out with guitar amp. But concerts were cool because when I worked for Record Factory, we had a bass outlet at the time, was what they had, Ticketmaster now. You could, when shows were on sale, you could just pull tickets. If something came up, you could get, you know, like Jane Oliver. Look at that one up, kids. Sort of second-rate Barbra Streisand singer. Came up front row center. Yeah, I'll take that. So you'd buy these tickets for things and go see people that you'd never have considered seeing before. One of the best concerts I ever saw in my life was doing armor trading at the Warfield in San Francisco.
Wow.
Just amazing. Just personable and amazing. 2 nights later, I saw Al Di Meola, and it was the exact opposite.
Awesome.
It was cold. He would walk up and go, "This is Race with the Devil on a Spanish Highway," and then they'd play it. This is ba 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 ba, and he'd play it. So
interesting.
On the other hand, Guar at Dragon Con was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of con attendees didn't expect Guar, didn't know what to expect, so they walked into the auditorium.
I hope they weren't wearing all white, because knowing Guar. Do you have a musical artist that you'd recommend listeners to check out?
Yeah. I go to my Facebook page. I always post all the records I'm listening to. And, you know, there's bands like Liquid Tension Experiment who are fucking bananas. They're like Tony Levin and a lot of Dream Theater people.
Yeah.
It's just
well, that's
musical.
something that I thought was cool that we shared in common. We both like progressive rock, and it seems like jazz fusion too. You know, I like jazz fusion. You remember I was posting about that a while back. You know, what's the difference between jazz fusion and progressive rock? Is it black players versus white players? You know, it's not, but it's funny. There's really close cross-section there. You know, it's like Goblin and Herbie Hancock. I can hear Herbie Hancock's Headhunters in Goblin's music.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's prog was great, you know, at the time because you could, you know, it was cool. Euro prog, you would go put an album on and it would continue from one song to the next. It's like, what? Yeah. That's crazy. I think for a lot of people, their gateway into all that shit is like Pink Floyd, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And Pink Floyd was kind of the gateway into so many other groups because they influenced so many other groups.
Sure.
Sure. I definitely hear Pink Floyd in Goblin as well.
It's that whole...
and Rush.
Sure. But then you get into the really, like, kooky stuff. German band called Squabschnitt are bananas, or Guru. There's a Swedish band called Samlas Mamas Mana. They have a great record called Malpid. It's bananas because it literally gives you, here's 4 bars of 1,000 songs. It's like constantly changing, and it's like in the middle of the song they get bored and they just decide to do something else, and they
that's a great idea.
Jump to it seamlessly. But they're weird and they're kooky and they're nothing like Pink Floyd at all, other than the fact that, you know, there's 20 songs and 11-minute guitar solos.
So I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Sure.
What's your favorite Prince album and why?
Wow.
See?
See, now that takes, well, recently I heard I'm trying to remember what it is. You'll know off the top of your head. It's a live thing, After Hours. They do a version of a Mother's Finest song.
Is it...
has a female vocalist that just shreds the pants off of it.
Yeah, it's probably Tamar. Let's see, what is that?
I can hear it in my head, I just can't think of the title. But it's on there. A lot of the live After Hours stuff, him alone on the piano stuff is just so good.
They're redoing all that, the One Night Alone live, and like they're doing vinyl of that. That's where I'm excited.
Here's the thing, and maybe you have some insight on that. I once saw a photograph online. It was taken in the archives at Paisley Park.
Okay.
And it showed 3 master tapes in black cases, and the only thing that was written on it were 2 words. 1, Prince, and beneath it said Gothic.
I've asked that same question. Yeah, there's 3 tapes, Prince Gothic. So,
could you imagine?
I don't know. Yes, I can. I don't know what those are, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. Because
I know.
Knowing Prince and knowing his influences, whatever that is going to be the best Gothic shit ever.
What gets me is that... Go ahead.
That came out, like the influence of that, like, you know, he was listening to everything. So the funny thing with Prince is if you ever his interviews, he's like, I don't listen to anything. I don't listen, or if I want to listen to music, I make my own music. It's like, no, that's bullshit. He absorbed music. He was like John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, he would just absorb the essence of whatever and then assimilate it and become a stronger version of that. The flip side of that is Robert Smith from The Cure was really into Prince, and I think that was a mutual thing.
Cool.
So Prince I don't know the era where those tapes, I can assume they're really old because the more modern stuff was all digital, there weren't tapes. So that's an interesting thing because all those tapes in the vault, whatever's in there is probably pre-2000.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder too.
And but the question becomes: does it lean into the goth part of Gothic or the Gothic part of Gothic? Is it going to be, you know, The Cure? Is it going to be choirs and Wagner? You know, that gets me excited. Wagner.
Well, it could be
Prince
because I don't know if you know that Prince was really into Gustav Mahler, and he would sample him. You know, that maybe answered the question. So, like 1990 era, like New Tour, like right after the Batman soundtrack, he was sampling Wagner, I think, and he would play it, little bits of it in his live show, and he name-checked him what is that? Good Love? Says, Gustav Mahler jamming on the box. You know, it's like, so he's, you know, that's 1989. I can just, well, okay, so that's when that was released. That, who knows when it was recorded, but Prince was looking at classical music hard at a certain point, and I think because he was working with Claire Fisher on the orchestrations on Parade, from Parade up until pretty much until Claire Fisher died. You know, and it added a texture to his music that was necessary that he couldn't come up with. That's also where Prince was brilliant. It's like he didn't know how to conduct an orchestra, so he went and found someone that could. Just send tapes, and so it's legendary. Like, he would send a limo driver over to Claire Fisher's house with a delivery guy with tapes, and they never met in person. Like, Prince was superstitious. Like, he didn't want to meet this guy.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I have no idea. I hope...
But, you know, that seems the natural progression, right, of a great artist like that. It happened for Zappa. I mean, Zappa went into classical music towards the end of his life. I hear Billy Joel, of all people, is doing classical music now. And it seems absolutely right.
Something, I don't know if you've heard, that is really good that Prince made is called the Kama Sutra Suite. Or I think it's a suite, but it's an entire orchestral piece that he wrote. And it was released right around Emancipation. And it's really good. I mean, because Prince, it was brilliant at melodies. And so it's lush orchestration with these really catchy melodies that come in and out. So, who knows?
Cool.
But, I mean, it's funny because your question to that is, I hope that it's both. I hope that it's lush, dense orchestration with, like, the Cure type of melancholy groove, because Prince could do with all of that.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm right there with you now.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that, but yeah, I'm right there. I'm right behind you.
Let's talk about horror toys. I imagine you've got toys, like props, action figures. I imagine you have quite a few.
I used to. Over the years, a couple of cross-country moves and collecting becomes less of a passion for me. There are some things oddities I collect. I saved. You know, I hand carved lament configuration. I found at a con once. I found a great pendant once that this artist made. It was of Neil Gaiman's death crucified on an ankh.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, and that kind of stuff is what I've kept. But over the years, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in what's right now my office, which is just basically the dining room that's been converted. Well, not converted, it's filled with junk. I've got tombstones and pumpkins, carved pumpkins, like foam pumpkins from Halloween. A lot of stuff that I make, that's the problem, and then a lot of stuff that my friends make. So I've got so much in storage that it's becoming an issue.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, it used to be for me, like I used to have a big record thing, and I would get a lot of records for free, and I would buy a lot of records and books and all this other stuff, and then I just noticed, like, how long has it been since I've revisited that, and once I got real with a lot of it, it just became for my life at my stage where I'm at right now, where it's all about getting rid of things.
Sure.
You know,
I think as we get older, that becomes more natural. Because it's like, what do I need this? What do I need this?
Yeah. But I do. There's nothing I love more than going through a dealer's room at a con and looking to see people are so creative, man.
Yep.
And that's why I love things like, people shit on Facebook a lot, but I love Facebook because a lot of times people will just share their art. I'm watching Joe Jusko now do a painting, he shows as it progresses, and it's
pretty cool.
And it goes back to the original point of just, people making art is such a beautiful thing. I always talk about it being the ultimate magic trick, right? Where for an instant, the artist and the person viewing the art are sharing space. And for that instant, I refer to it as a single imagining unit especially when you're reading a book where artist is so patched in, and you and the reader are so patched in. You're sensing things and smelling things. These days, that's what I'm playing with. To lead them to this conclusion where I don't have to tell them that this is happening, they'll infer that it's happening. And they'll hopefully one day walk up to me and go, this is what was going on, and I'm going to be so excited. Because I don't know. I don't know. It's so great because it makes the reader a part of the experience, and I think that's just awesome.
Do you have a writing ritual? I mean, do you have like a specific song or soundtrack that you put on to set the mood? Do you do candles? Do you set lighting?
The number one criteria, music without words. So it has to be, I lean in this because it's words. I don't want to get words. Suddenly my characters are quoting Sister Christian, right? Writing books, building a house. So my story is my foundation, and that is something on which everything else is based. My first draft, I'm throwing up framing. I'm defining rooms. I'm defining hallways. I'm defining where the plumbing's going to go, and then my next pass, I'm putting in piping, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. When I get to the point where I'm adjusting picture frames, I'm done. Then I send it. I have a couple of people that I love dearly that are afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. That I send. I've honed it down to 2 people, where I send it to one person. Shout out to Heather Sturbiak, who reads it and gives me the feedback of like, does it fly? Does it suck? Yep. Does it work? And she'll usually tell me like, this works for me. This didn't work for me. And I tool a little bit, and I go to another guy, a guy named Edwards, who's also my gun guy, who I have questions about guns or whatever else. I go to John. John knows everything about that stuff. So, and he'll give me thumbs up or a thumbs down, not because that's all I want from John. Yeah. John gives me the does it truly work? And have I accurate? Because I mostly worry about sticking the landing. I keep being focused on that because I think that's where genre fails. It's easy to create a monster and da-da-da-da-da, but to get yourself out of that room is really hard. Right. King notoriously fumbles his landings, but we love him anyway.
It reminds me of Saturday Night Live, the sketches, like they'll have a solid sketch and they just can't figure out how to end it and it just kind of fizzles. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, damn. Yeah, it's just, I tend to work, this gets weird, like cinematically, where I see the film, I see the instance as it happens in my head. I know what I want to do, I know what I want to accomplish, I know where people need to go, but I see it. And within that film, in which I then can have the ability in my head, and this is where it gets weird, is to take the frame and much like if you know what an exploded schematic is, of a thing that's like a part that gets exploded out, I can take that image in my head and stop it and explode it out and step into it. And I can walk around. This gets weird. As I'm saying it out loud, it sounds weird. No, it's actually cool. Keep going.
But as I can walk around within the moment, I can look at it from different angles and say like, hey, wow, because when I was standing over here, I didn't even see this thing that was right behind him. But within the moment, I can turn and look. And odds, for a lot of the things I do, it's horror and it's action. It's that one sentence, that errant observation. I did a thing years ago of an old lady that trips and falls, and as she's falling, she notices a spider catching a fly in a web. Because if you've ever been through any kind of thing like that, and I know you have, it's like the idea of that. You remember the weirdest things, and you focus on the weirdest things in the moment all up, and that's what
really
makes
does
it
slow
real.
down.
Yeah, and it brings it home. I think in a weird way, because ultimately what I do is I was just talking about this online about. I'm a liar. I lie on paper. The more elaborate my lie is, the more you believe it, and the more it creates that bridge to your intellect, to where now we become that aforementioned imagining unit. So being able to do that has afforded me opportunities in that I can see if I just did this, I don't need to do anything big. I just need to include this one thing, and it's going to push it over and make it resonate. And then I can step back and I can back the film up and rerun it again and go, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I opened the second zombie book with something that had to do with that. It was a knife fight, and there was a throw it's super brutal, but there's a throw that I discovered that way. For the record, it's a knife pinning the tongue to propel through the under, and then using that knife as an anchor to hip toss someone. You pull on it over your hip. And
okay, wow, that's cool.
So the moment when those come, yeah, they're the best.
So that actually leads me exactly to the next point. So another thing we have in common is a interest, or more than an interest, in martial arts.
Yes.
I assume you've studied Wing Chun.
Yes. Not voluminously.
Yeah, me neither.
But
enough.
Yeah. I mean, my journey was being a kid, kind of bullied, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. About that time, I saw Five Fingers of Death, and I got, wait, what is this? And started with Kendo, Iaido, Kenjutsu in Japan, mostly sword stuff. Took a break because I got married and I found girls. Went back into Muay Thai and JKD. Took another break because I had kids, and then did Muay Thai, and then found things. The world opened up at that point. My old podcast partner, Langley J. West, introduced me to the Philippines and Silat and Eskrima and Kali and all of this other stuff. And going through all of that training, the focus has changed. I'm older now. I'm not too interested in competitions or belts or any of that other nonsense. So now I'm studying a lot of stuff that is sort of off book, if you want to say. And it takes a little to get my head around. It's more life and death stuff. It's more of
that's the important stuff, because on the streets it is life and death. It's that weird thing people don't understand, and maybe they shouldn't, because that's how you create a shut-in, I think, and I have to fight it myself, because it's I'm a big PTSD guy here. I've been robbed at gunpoint 2 times. The first time I had a gun in my face, I was 8. So you can see it all in the work, right? It all comes out doing the work. A lot of the things thematically get expressed that way. I was just talking with my doctor because I'm not joking. I actually have brain damage. And I have brain damage from the stroke. My neurologist showed me, because I have anger. I've been posting about it. I have anger issues, where I was the most mannered guy. I was the caged beast my entire life, and the mechanism that kept that caged is gone. So just like learning to walk again, I'm trying to learn how to rein it back in. And so I'm going to a therapist now, and I have an appointment scheduled, and be like, okay, so here's what I'm dealing with post-stroke. And then let's address that, and then let's go back into my entire childhood, my whole life. PTSD. It's like so many layers of PTSD. And so it's like my wife and I talk about it. She's like, yeah, I don't want you to stop hating people. They deserve to be hated. I just don't want you to lose control. So my analogy that I've used with friends is like, I was Batman and now I'm the Hulk, which sucks because I don't have the Hulk strength. And it's like, I wasn't quite Batman either. So it's like, I'm 50-year-old disabled guy that's getting super pissed and calling people assholes in the street and wanting to fight. And it's like, I got to figure this out. It's like, because one of my teachers that taught me Praying Menace way back had a brain tumor, and the radiation from the brain tumor ended up killing him slowly. And at a point where he was in a care home, I heard the stories afterwards that he would get violent with the caretakers. And I was like, ooh, shit. If that guy gets violent and he's now brain addled, it's like, it's dangerous.
So I don't know. I mean,
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, people that care about you, so important. People that...
I can change it to a lighter topic. So you have met many celebrities. I mean, professionally met many celebrities. Name a celebrity that you haven't met yet that you'd like to have a cocktail with. That's going to be hard because you've met a lot of them.
I had... we had a big interview scheduled with Stephen King. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of days before it was scheduled for is when he was struck by the car. So he's kind of my white whale, you know. People, it's changed for me.
Cocktail would be out of the question with Stephen King because he doesn't drink.
Yeah. A cup of coffee.
Sure.
It's different for me now because for a while there, like I was hip deep in a lot of that stuff, and I'm doing a lot of. And now I've come to realize. In some ways, it's better not to. Never meet heroes, right? I've had a few instances where they've been great, and they've. It's funny. I talk a lot about the pieces of the puzzle. Like our job in life, I think, is to collect the pieces of the puzzle, and you'll never know who will have one. What odd person you'll get a piece of the puzzle from. And then the middle section of your life is sort of, and the latter sections of your life is sort of gathering those pieces together and making sense of those pieces that you thought were important and see what picture they sort of tell. So you'd be surprised. I've had epiphanies in interviews with people that I've met once and never met them again. I know that I've had influence on people that later, maybe you'll hear something in an interview and you go, fuck, that's mine, man. So these days, I don't know. I'm a guy anyway that, like, when my wife and I were dating, I invite people to our table all the time, or at least I used to. I don't do that so much anymore. But I'm a big, like, if you can get me started in a conversation, it gets a little spectrum-y where it's like I start honing in and my wife always tells me, like, you have to talk to people, not interview them. And that can get hard sometimes.
No, and look what I'm doing.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things where having real conversations with some people would be great. Some names that come up are a little unexpected. Dan Inosanto would be imminent. I don't get any people about their work. So I'm going to talk about more. I like to talk about process. A lot of the podcasts I have done, the bonus material and the Night Crew, it all seemed to end up at process. Because what I discovered was that, and you're kind of doing it effortlessly, which I commend you for. The idea that, like, the process that gets applied to the musician is the same. It's the same thing that gets applied to the artist or the whatever, to the painter, to the sculptor.
It's the illusion. The hours that are unseen creates the illusion of seamless talent.
For me, it's always about, like I used to tell people, if you can, in talking with people, find what they geek on, and they'll hand you the next question.
Right. Which is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm prepared. I created my list of questions last night. I've got about 20 of them here. And you've answered in advance, like 10 of the questions already. So, I mean, you're exactly what I'm looking for.
Here's a perfect example. I had come in with maybe 20, 25 questions for an interview for Carpe Noctem when we were doing Carpe Noctem with Neil Gaiman. And it was scheduled for 30 minutes, and I had my questions, and there was all this stuff, and we were all prepared. 5 minutes in, he said, let me tell you about writing. And I was smart enough, or in a moment enough to go, okay, fuck my questions.
Stop the press.
Because this is gold. And we ended up talking for 3 hours. And that was something that always taught me, like, come prepared, but be ready to torch your prep, because
And
especially
that's the funny thing, as I said to you in advance of this, it's like, my questions are just a map, and we don't know where it's going to go.
Yes.
So the map is just kind of to, like, bring me back to, like, okay, let's go on to this. So another similarity that you and I have, we have a lot of similarities. I work in a library, you work in a bookstore. We both are bibliophiles. What's your biggest challenge in dealing with the public while working in a bookstore?
It kind of ties in with some reading I'm doing now. I'm reading Campbell's Power of Myth, that we've lost the ability, that we forget that people deserve a basic respect.
That's true.
We forget that people all have their own shit. And we forget that the guy behind the counter just wants you to go. Just wants you to get your stuff. Let me check you out and get out of here. I don't want. You know what I mean? And when you come to me with a problem, don't take it out on me. That's the hardest part, is that people forget because they're so wound up. They don't have the spatial awareness to understand that there are other people in the world, besides themselves.
It reminds me of the thing you posted on Facebook, which was the meme of eat, pay, leave for, like, people working in restaurants. And it's like, perfect. Mm-hmm. That's what it should be.
It was the word. I worked in 502 dispensary up here, I lived up in Washington for a while, and that was the worst because everyone wanted to stand and talk and tell you about their weed experiences and I'm happy to listen.
You gotta move.
Yeah, I just gotta go. I got shit to do, buddy. I gotta go. I'm happy to talk with you for a little while and hear your story, but when you're on your third or fourth story, we gotta wrap this up. But that's just being in your own head. And so I try to be forgiving and all that. I'm trying now to slay my ego and sort of understand that more and to be just step more gentle, I should say.
Sure.
Because for a lot of years there, I felt like I needed to be big. I needed to storm my way into a room. My philosophy was, I get my way into this room and you're going to have to drag me out of it. You know what I mean? So, and that does have its benefits, but it also, can be counterproductive.
So I have a really weird question, not a prepared question, but it's something personal for me. I've debated this with my wife. She doesn't agree with me, but I think this is the case. I think I'm on the spectrum. I researched. I was like, I'm hyper-focused. I'm antisocial. I was incredibly shy as a child, and it got trained out of me. Mm-hmm. So I'm not asking you if you think that I'm on the spectrum. Do you think that talented people are somehow on the spectrum? That there's a little bit of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Unhesitantly, yes. And the reason for that is this. It takes a certain way of thinking to look at what did Michelangelo say about, like, hey man, I just removed the art, David, right?
Right.
To be able to do that takes a different way of thinking, and people. I don't want to speak for all people that are autistic, but I feel like it's part of what makes you so good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That ability to focus, and it also what makes oftentimes your personal life such a wreck.
Sure.
I talk a lot about dinner with you and a couple of our friends. How do I do that when half an hour ago I was willing an island into existence?
Yeah.
Right? There's a line in Sondheim, Spending the Park with George, in a song called Finishing the Hag. He says, mapping out a sky, what it feels like mapping out a sky. And once then God, once you've said, I want this to happen, and it happens, and you go back into normal life, it's hard. It's really hard because so much of it is out of your control. I control everything. everything that goes into my writing, I control. And if I don't like it, I've had people to this day, my publisher came to me and said, your first book, I think you came out of the gate way too strong. The book begins with a baby back from the dead. So, whoops. Also, it was that storming into the room thing. That was my attitude. Was like, well,
Yeah.
if you can't handle this, you're going to really hate the rest of it.
Yep.
You know. So,
do you have a favorite horror movie soundtrack?
wow.
I know.
And, I don't know. I have a Inspires playlist of about 7,000 songs that are all
Okay.
all the if I need that kind of thing, I just go there.
Well, I usually
I love
use that
soundtrack music though.
Yeah,
I
put
just love
that on
soundtrack music.
when I'm drawing or painting
Mm-hmm.
or writing.
Oh, dude, the Dawn of the Dead score when you're going through the mall is the best.
I haven't been to the mall yet, and
Yeah.
I'm planning on it this year. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Definitely
and
bring the Dawn score.
it's in my
fun.
head. I mean,
Yeah.
I can walk through and hum it. I mean, it's in my brain, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I will, and I'll have good headphones so I can hear all the bass.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's one of those things. Music is a constant in my life, and and in any given moment, if someone says, "Give me your top 5 this," moment to moment, it absolutely changes.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like me with Prince records or Prince songs. It used to be my favorite was Anesthesia, which I love. And then recently I was like, no, it's not Anesthesia. It's Strange Relationship, which I also love. And, of course, music is tied to memory for me.
Right.
You know, I hear something and I'm transported to that place. That's what music should do. And you've seen, excuse me, the videos of like the elderly people in the retirement home. They play them like Benny Goodman, and suddenly they're back alive. It's like music is magic.
Sure. Well, they talk a lot about how there's part of our lives where the point of our lives, I should say, that we stop bringing in new music. It's why at a certain age you notice all your friends are listening to classic rock. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or what have you.
I try to do the opposite.
I do too, and it drives me insane when I like my wife. I love my wife dearly, but like her musical sort of vibe is like 80s, early 90s, and that's just where her head's at. No, nothing at all. So I get that, but for me, it's completely different. Like music, the right music in headphones makes walking down the street an adventure.
It does.
Yeah.
Final question. You get to ask me any question you want. What question would you like to ask?
Wow.
Yep.
How did you meet Sean Lewis?
Oh, Sean? Let's see. Oh, I can answer that. I met him through my friend Chuck Jarman.
Oh, okay. Chuck is awesome.
Yeah. I was at a Fangoria convention in San Jose. I knew who Sean was because I knew what Rotten Cotton was. Like, we don't live that far away, and all the horror people kind of know who each other are. And so I was by myself. I drove to this San Jose. I got a room, and the convention was shitty. Sorry, Fangoria. Not sorry, but so...
Yeah, they had a couple of rough ones in San Jose.
Yeah, and so Chuck and I were just walking the floor, and just, it's like there's nothing there. And he's like, well, I guess I'm going to go. It's like, all right. And so then Chuck started taking me around and introducing me to people. It's like, you should hang out with him. You should hang out with him. And Sean was one of those guys. And, it was like, I liked his T-shirts. I liked what he did. And I also knew that Chuck and Sean were old friends. And so it's kind of like, a friend of my friend is my friend.
Absolutely.
And so we hung out for a bit. after the show in the concierge lounge. I might be getting it mixed up. I think that's where I met him the first time, but there was definitely a time where I was hanging out with Sean and his brother John at Burbank, Fangoria, because they were screening advanced footage of Devil Doll. Have you ever seen his Black Devil Doll?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we were there drinking, and I had some friends with me, and we all walked over to this theater where they were screening it, and it was just a blast.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
And
I love those guys. In my head, they'll always be the Blackest Heart guys, because
Yeah.
they used to run this thing called Blackest Heart Media.
that was the funny thing is, after I met Chuck, like one of my first times meeting Chuck, we were out at dinner, and it's like, wait a minute. It's like, did you do Blackest Heart Media? And he looked all embarrassed, like, yeah. So he, and it's like, that was hilarious. I used to buy bootlegs from Blackest Heart.
Yeah, me too. You know, it was right around that time when I met Sean. Right around that time, like Mitch Boone was hanging in that periphery, and then we used to run into each other at FangoCons all the time. Turned out that I used to always run into Chaz Ballon at his.
Oh yeah, that's where I met him. Yeah.
Yeah, Chaz. Mm.
And yeah.
You don't know that name. That's your homework assignment. Jesus, that guy was something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just
can
remember.
Say, seek out Connoisseur's Guide to Horror, or The Gore Score by Chaz Ballin. Like, if you haven't read that, go buy it. Go buy the old Deep Red magazines if you can find them.
Sure.
They're expensive now.
You can. Yeah, you can find them though. You know, and then the one night I remember, we were there was a Fango convention in LA. We were out in a bar someplace, and there was a bunch of people sitting there, and this poor guy had a guitar and a drum machine, and he would, on this little stage in the corner, just banging out, bread songs. It's like trying to entertain this little loungy bar thing. And this crew comes rolling in, and it's me and my wife and Sean, and I remember Sage Stallone was there, and just a bunch of the Black Heart guys were there. And I just remember them just tearing into this poor guy.
Yeah.
Telling him that, yelling out Motorhead songs like "Play Space," and it was just this crazy, wild sort of time. And I just thought, I like these guys. Like I just kind of barely controlled the chaos with something else. And then over the years, he's proven himself just to be such a stalwart of the genre. And the stuff that Ivan Press is doing now is.
Oh yeah,
I know a little bit about the pain in the ass it is to get all of that coloring right and all of that stuff right. Yeah. And Jesus, he's doing amazing stuff.
Plus, I mean, the fact that he's wrapping those, like shrink wrapping those by hand.
Yeah, that's all hand stuff. That's hard to do. We did that when we did Carpet Nocturne 20. We did that. We sent them all out in silver envelopes, and they were all this other stuff. And it was such a pain in the ass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up.
Good. Right on.
It was great talking with you.
That was easy.
We'll talk again.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for your time. All right.
Yep, no problem. Later, bud. Later.
Music and Monsters.
You are watching Music and Monsters.
Music and Monsters, the art of Jace Whitman. Please visit www.musicandmonsters.com.